The apartment was quiet when I walked in, the kind of quiet that precedes something significant. I recognized it immediately, the charged silence of a conversation waiting to happen, the air thick with unspoken words. My girlfriend, Nina, was sitting on the couch, her laptop open on the coffee table, her phone face down beside her. She looked up when I entered, and her expression was not the warm, welcoming one I had come home to for 3 years. It was something else, calculated, deliberate, the face of someone who had been rehearsing. "Hey," I said, setting down my bag. "Everything okay? We need to talk." For words that have ended more relationships than any others. I sat down across from her, leaving the space between us, and I waited. She took a breath. "I've been invited on a trip. A girl's trip." "Okay. Where?" "Miami. Next month. For a week." "That sounds fun." I genuinely meant it. Nina had been stressed with work, and a vacation would do her good. "Who's going?" She looked away, and I felt the first prickle of unease. "It's complicated." "Complicated how?" "The group. It's not just girls. There are 3 guys going too." She rushed the words, as if saying them quickly would make them land more softly. "They're old friends from college. I've known them for years. They're part of the group." I processed the information. 3 guys. A girl's trip that wasn't a girl's trip. A week in Miami. And the way she was telling me, the careful preparation, the rehearsed calm, told me everything I needed to know about what she expected my reaction to be. "I didn't know you had male friends from college," I said. "You've never mentioned them." "They're not. I haven't seen them in years. But they're back in town, and they're going on this trip, and they invited me, and I want to go." She finally looked at me, her eyes steady. "I'm telling you because I want to be transparent." Transparent. She wanted to be transparent. After 3 years, she was finally being transparent about a group of male friends she had never once mentioned. "Can I meet them?" I asked. "Before you go?" Her hesitation lasted less than a second, but I saw it. "They're leaving tomorrow. There's not really time." "Then after? When you get back?" "They're not staying in the city. They're just passing through." She was already shaking her head. "It's not that kind of thing. They're old friends. I trust them. You should trust me." This was the script. I had heard variations of it before, in other contexts, with other people. The request for trust without transparency, the demand for acceptance without information. The implication that any hesitation on my part was a failure of character. "I'm not saying I don't trust you," I said carefully. "I'm saying I'd like to meet the people you're spending a week with." "That's not unreasonable." "It feels unreasonable." Her voice hardened. "You're making this into a thing." "It's not a thing. It's a trip with old friends. Old friends I've never heard of." "You've never asked about my college friends." "Because you never mentioned them. You've told me about your roommates, your classmates, the people you stayed in touch with. You never mentioned 3 guys you were close enough to vacation with." The silence stretched. She was angry now. I could see it, the frustration building behind her carefully controlled expression. She had expected this conversation to go differently. She had expected me to trust her without question, to accept her plans without examination, to be the kind of boyfriend who didn't ask questions. "You have 2 choices," she said finally. Her voice was flat, the voice of someone delivering an ultimatum they've been saving for the right moment. "You can accept that I'm going on this trip with my friends, and we can move forward. Or you can be single." The words landed like stones. I stared at her, waiting for the punchline, the smile that would tell me she was joking. It didn't come. "You're giving me an ultimatum." "I'm telling you what's going to happen. I'm going on this trip. It's important to me. If you can't handle that, then we're not compatible." "Handle it?" "I asked to meet your friends. That's all. I didn't say you couldn't go. I didn't threaten anything. I asked to meet the people you're spending a week with." "You're making it about trust. If you trusted me, you wouldn't need to meet them." "I trust you. I don't trust people I don't know." "Same thing." "It's not the same thing." She stood up, closing her laptop with a sharp click. "I'm not going to argue about this. I've told you what's happening. The choice is yours." She walked out of the living room, down the hall to the bedroom. The door closed behind her, not slammed but firm, a statement of finality. I sat on the couch for a long time, staring at the wall. 3 years. 3 years of building a life together, of sharing an apartment and a bed and the mundane routines of partnership. 3 years of believing that we were on the same page, that we wanted the same things, that the foundation we were building was solid. And now she was giving me an ultimatum about a trip with 3 men she had never mentioned, expecting me to accept it without question, framing my hesitation as a character flaw. The choice is yours. I thought about the past 3 years. I thought about the ways I had accommodated her, compromised for her, made myself smaller to fit the space she was willing to give me. I thought about the friends I had lost because she didn't like them, the hobbies I had dropped because they took time away from her, the parts of myself I had quietly set aside because they didn't fit the version of me she wanted. And I thought about the choice. Accept her going on a trip with 3 strangers, or be single. She thought she was giving me a choice between her and my discomfort. She thought I would choose her, as I always had, because I had always chosen her. She thought I would swallow my unease, suppress my questions, accept the terms she was offering because the alternative, losing her, was too terrible to contemplate. She was wrong. I stood up, walked to the bedroom, and opened the door. She was sitting on the bed, her back against the headboard, scrolling through her phone. She didn't look up. "I'm going to take the second choice," I said. Her thumb stopped moving. Slowly, she lifted her head. "What?" I said. "I'm going to take the second choice. The one where I'm single. You're breaking up with me." Her voice was flat, disbelieving. "Over a trip. I'm breaking up with you because you gave me an ultimatum. Because you refused to introduce me to people you're spending a week with. Because after 3 years, I'm still finding out about significant parts of your life." I kept my voice calm, steady. "This isn't about the trip. It's about what the trip represents." "And what's that?" "That I don't matter enough for you to consider my feelings. That my comfort, my trust, my need for transparency, none of it is important enough to accommodate. That I'm supposed to accept whatever terms you set, without question, because you've decided that's how it's going to be." She set down her phone. "That's not fair. It's not fair that I'm the only one who compromises. It's not fair that I've lost friends, changed hobbies, adjusted my life to fit your expectations, and the one time I ask for something, the one time I want to meet your friends, you give me an ultimatum." I paused. "I'm done being the one who always bends." She stared at me, and I watched her process what was happening. She hadn't expected this. She had expected me to cave, to apologize, to tell her I was being unreasonable, and of course she should go on the trip, and of course I trusted her, and of course I was sorry for questioning her. She had expected me to be the person I had always been. I was not that person anymore. "I'm going to pack some things," I said. "I'll be out tonight." "Where will you go?" "My brother's. He's been asking me to stay for months." "Daniel." She stood up, and for the first time, I saw something like fear in her eyes. "Don't do this. We can talk about this. We've talked. You gave me a choice. I made it." I turned and walked out of the bedroom. I went to the closet, pulled out my suitcase, and began to pack. Clothes, toiletries, the few personal items that were truly mine. I moved quickly, efficiently, the way I had learned to move when I needed to be somewhere else. She stood in the doorway, watching me. "You're overreacting. This is insane. You're ending 3 years because of a trip. I'm ending 3 years because you showed me who you are. I'm just finally believing you." "What does that mean?" "It means I've been ignoring signs for a long time. The way you dismiss my feelings. The way you make your needs the only ones that matter. The way you frame my reasonable requests as unreasonable demands." I zipped the suitcase. "This isn't about the trip. It's about a pattern. And I'm done being part of it." I walked past her, out of the bedroom, through the living room, to the front door. I paused with my hand on the knob. "I hope the trip is everything you wanted." I opened the door and walked out. My brother, James, lived across town in a house that was too big for one person, but exactly what he needed. He was 5 years older than me, divorced, raising a daughter on his own, and he had been telling me for months that I deserved better than the life I was living. When I showed up at his door at 9 p.m. with a suitcase, he didn't ask questions. He just opened the door wider and said, "I'll make up the guest room." "You don't have to." "Daniel, guest room. Go." I went. The first week was a blur of processing and adjusting. I took a leave of absence from work, telling my boss I needed some personal time. I blocked Nina's number, her social media, anything that connected me to the life I had left. I slept a lot, ate when James put food in front of me, and spent hours staring at the ceiling of the guest room, trying to understand how I had gotten here. James didn't push. He was there when I needed to talk, silent when I needed to think. His daughter, Maya, was 8 years old and curious about everything, including why her uncle was living in the guest room and looked sad all the time. "Is Uncle Daniel sick?" I heard her ask James one night, her voice carrying through the thin walls. No, sweetheart. He's just healing. From what? From something that hurt him. He needs time. She was quiet for a moment. Then, does he want a hug? You can ask him tomorrow. I cried that night, for the first time since I left. Not for Nina. I had stopped crying for her somewhere between the ultimatum and the door. But for myself. For the years I had spent bending, accommodating, making myself small. For the person I had become, the person I was only now beginning to recognize. The second week, I started to get angry. It came on slowly, a low heat in my chest that built with each passing day. I thought about the ultimatum, the casual cruelty of it, the way she had presented my choices as if they were equally reasonable. I thought about the friends I had lost, the hobbies I had abandoned, the parts of myself I had set aside to fit into her life. I thought about the version of me she had created, compliant, accommodating, easy, and I hated that I had let her. I started writing. Not a journal, not letters I would never send. I started writing about the relationship, documenting the patterns I had ignored, the moments when I had chosen silence over confrontation, accommodation over authenticity. I wrote about the trip, the ultimatum, the door closing behind me. And as I wrote, the anger began to clarify into something else, understanding. I had let her treat me that way. Not because I was weak, not because I deserved it, but because I had been taught, by her, by my family, by the culture I grew up in, that love meant sacrifice. That the measure of a man was his willingness to endure. That standing up for myself was selfish. That having boundaries was cruel. That asking for what I needed was a failure of masculinity. I had learned those lessons well. And now, finally, I was unlearning them. The third week, Nina started trying to contact me. She used different numbers, different accounts, found ways around the blocks I had put in place. Her messages cycled through anger, confusion, pleading, and back again. She wanted to talk, she said. She wanted to explain. She wanted me to understand that she hadn't meant it like that I had misunderstood, that the trip wasn't what I thought. I read the messages, each one, and I deleted them without responding. There was nothing she could say that would change what had happened. The ultimatum had been delivered. The choice had been made. There was no going back. The fourth week, James sat me down in his kitchen, 2 cups of coffee between us, and asked me what I was going to do. I don't know, I admitted. I can't go back to the apartment. It's not mine anymore. You don't want to go back. No, I don't. Then what do you want? I thought about the question. I thought about the years I had spent building a life around someone else's expectations, accommodating someone else's needs, making myself into someone I didn't recognize. I thought about the person I had been before Nina, the person I was becoming again. I want to figure out who I am, I said. Without her. Without anyone else's expectations. I want to figure out what I want. He nodded slowly. That's a good answer. How do I do that? By living. By making choices for yourself. By paying attention to what makes you feel like you. He paused. And by giving yourself permission to be wrong. To change your mind. To not have it all figured out. I took a sip of my coffee. That's terrifying. It's supposed to be. If it wasn't terrifying, it wouldn't be real. The fifth week, I moved into my own place. It was a small apartment, nothing like the one I had shared with Nina. 1 bedroom, a kitchen that was barely big enough for one person, a living room that looked out onto a brick wall. It was mine. I picked it. I signed the lease. I filled it with furniture I chose. It was modest and quiet and exactly what I needed. James helped me move, carrying boxes up the narrow stairs, arranging furniture in the small rooms. Maya came too, drawing pictures to hang on my walls, declaring the apartment cozy and perfect for Uncle Daniel. When they left, I sat on my new couch, a second-hand thing that was comfortable in all the ways that mattered, and looked around at the space that was mine. There were no compromises here, no accommodations, no parts of myself set aside to fit someone else's life. It was small and imperfect and entirely, completely mine. I started to rebuild. I reached out to the friends I had lost, the ones Nina had decided she didn't like. Some of them had moved on, their lives filled with other people, other connections. But some of them were waiting, their doors open, their welcome warm. I reconnected with old colleagues, old classmates, the people who had known me before I became someone else. I picked up hobbies I had abandoned. I started running again, the way I had in college, the rhythm of feet on pavement clearing my mind. I started cooking, experimenting with recipes, learning to make food that nourished me. I started reading the books I had set aside because Nina thought they were pretentious or boring or a waste of time. I started to remember who I was. The 6th week, I received a letter from Nina. It was handwritten, the paper thick and cream-colored, the kind of stationery she used for important correspondence. I recognized her handwriting immediately, the looping cursive that had signed birthday cards and love notes, and now, this. I opened it with hands that didn't shake. Daniel, I know you don't want to hear from me. I know you've blocked me everywhere, that you've made it clear you don't want to talk. I'm writing because I need to say some things, and I need to say them in a way you can't delete or ignore. I went on the trip. It was a mistake. Not the trip itself, but the way I handled it. The way I handled you. I was so focused on what I wanted, on proving that I was independent, on not being controlled, that I didn't see what I was doing to you. I didn't see that I was the one doing the controlling. The trip was fine. The guys were fine. It was nothing. It was always going to be nothing. But the way I treated you, the ultimatum, the refusal to introduce you, the dismissal of your feelings, that was something. That was me showing you who I am. And I'm ashamed of it. I've been in therapy since I got back. I've been trying to understand why I did what I did, why I treated you the way I did. The short answer is that I was scared. Scared of being controlled. Scared of losing myself. Scared of becoming the kind of woman who needs permission to live her life. But in trying not to be controlled, I became controlling. In trying not to lose myself, I lost you. I'm not writing to ask you to come back. I know I don't deserve that. I'm writing to apologize. For the ultimatum. For the years of dismissing your feelings. For making you feel like your needs didn't matter. For all of it. I hope you're okay. I hope you found peace. I hope, someday, you can forgive me. Nina. I read the letter 3 times. Then I folded it carefully, placed it back in the envelope, and set it on the kitchen table. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Her apology was for her, not for me. It was the beginning of her healing, not the end of mine. I let it sit there for a week, a reminder of what I had left behind. Then I threw it away. The weeks became months. I settled into my new life, the rhythms of solitude becoming familiar, comfortable. I learned to cook for one, to sleep in the middle of the bed, to fill my weekends with things that brought me joy rather than obligations. I learned to be alone without being lonely, to find contentment in the quiet spaces between activities. I started going to therapy myself, not because I was broken, but because I wanted to understand how I had gotten to that place, the place where I accepted being treated as optional, where I accommodated demands that should have been deal breakers, where I lost myself in someone else's expectations. My therapist, a woman named Dr. Park, listened to my story without judgment. She asked questions that made me uncomfortable, that pushed me to examine the assumptions I had carried for years. She helped me see the patterns, the childhood messages about sacrifice and endurance, the cultural narratives about what it meant to be a good partner, the ways I had learned to equate love with loss of self. It's not weakness to have boundaries, she said, in one session. It's not cruelty to ask for what you need. Love that requires you to disappear is not love. It's erasure. I wrote that down. I carried it with me, a reminder of what I was learning. The 4th month after I left, I started dating again. It was tentative at first, coffee dates that went nowhere, conversations that fizzled out. I wasn't looking for a relationship. I was looking to remember how to connect, how to be present with someone without disappearing. I was learning to hold on to myself while reaching toward someone else. I met Sophie at a bookstore of all places. She was reaching for the same novel I was, our hands brushing on the shelf. She laughed, apologized, and asked if I'd read anything else by the author. We talked for 20 minutes in the fiction section, then moved to the cafe next door and talked for 2 more hours. She was different from Nina. She asked questions and listened to the answers. She offered her own stories without turning the conversation into a performance. She laughed easily, disagreed thoughtfully, and when I told her about my recent breakup, she didn't offer advice or judgment. She just said, "That sounds hard. I'm glad you're doing what you need to heal." We dated slowly, carefully. We talked about our boundaries, our expectations, the things we were still working through. We gave each other space to be wrong, to change our minds, to not have it all figured out. We built something new, something that didn't require either of us to disappear. Sophie had her own history, her own patterns to unlearn. She had been in relationships where she was the one who bent, the one who accommodated, the one who made herself small. She understood what it was like to lose yourself in someone else's expectations. And she was just as committed as I was to doing it differently this time. 6 months after I left Nina's apartment, I ran into her at a coffee shop. It was a Saturday morning, the kind of day that was bright and cold, the light sharp against the windows. I was waiting for my order when the door opened and she walked in. She looked different, thinner, her hair shorter, the lines of her face softer than I remembered. She saw me, stopped, and for a moment neither of us moved. Daniel. Her voice was uncertain. I didn't expect to see you. I come here sometimes. She nodded, her eyes scanning my face. You look good. Really good. I feel good. Can I? She hesitated. Can I sit with you? Just for a minute. I won't keep you. I considered saying no. It would have been easier, cleaner, to walk away. But something in me, the part that had healed, the part that no longer needed to protect itself, said yes. We sat at a table by the window, our coffees between us, the morning light making everything look softer than it was. I got your letter, I said. Thank you for writing it. I meant every word. She wrapped her hands around her cup. I've been in therapy for 6 months. I'm still trying to understand why I did what I did. Why I treated you the way I did. Did you figure it out? Some of it. She looked down at her coffee. My mother. The way she raised me. She was always warning me about men, about losing myself, about being controlled. And I heard that message so loudly that I couldn't see when I was the one doing the controlling. I was so afraid of being the victim that I became the aggressor. I listened without interrupting, the way I had learned to listen in therapy. Not to respond, not to defend, just to understand. I'm not making excuses, she continued. I'm just explaining. I hurt you. I treated you like your feelings didn't matter. I gave you an ultimatum because I thought that's what strong women did. And I lost you because of it. You didn't lose me because of the ultimatum. You lost me because of everything that came before it. The years of dismissing my feelings, making your needs the only ones that mattered, framing my reasonable requests as unreasonable demands. I paused. The ultimatum was just the moment I finally saw it. She nodded slowly. I know. I've been trying to understand that too. To understand how I got so comfortable treating someone I loved as optional. How's the therapy going? Hard. Good. I'm learning a lot about myself. Things I should have learned a long time ago. She looked at me, and her eyes were wet. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know that I'm trying to be better. Not for you, for me. For whoever comes next. I thought about Sophie, about the careful way we were building something new. I thought about the person I had been with Nina, the person I was becoming now. I thought about forgiveness, not as absolution, but as release. I'm glad you're healing, I said. I'm glad you're doing the work. She smiled, a small, tentative thing. Thank you. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of our history between us. Then I stood up. I should go. I have plans. She stood too, gathering her coat. Daniel? I'm sorry. For everything. I know. I paused at the door. Take care of yourself, Nina. You too. I walked out into the cold morning, the sun bright against my face. I didn't look back. Sophie and I celebrated our 1-year anniversary last week. We went to the bookstore where we met, bought each other books we'd already read, and spent the afternoon in the cafe talking about nothing and everything. She is patient and kind and fiercely herself, and she never asks me to be anyone other than who I am. I've learned things in the past year that I should have learned a long time ago. I've learned that love doesn't require sacrifice, that boundaries aren't walls, that asking for what you need isn't weakness, that the people who matter will meet you where you are, not demand that you go somewhere else. I've learned that the person who gave me an ultimatum didn't love me, not the way I needed to be loved, not the way I deserved to be loved. She loved the idea of me, the version she could control, the person she needed me to be. And when I stopped being that person, she chose to let me go. I've learned that the hardest choice isn't always the wrong one. That walking away from someone who doesn't see you is the first step toward finding yourself. That being alone is better than being invisible. And I've learned that the 2 choices she gave me weren't the only choices at all. There was a third choice. The one she never considered, the one she never imagined I would make. The choice to leave. The choice to become someone she couldn't control. The choice to be free. I made that choice, and I have never regretted it. I think about her sometimes, the way you think about a scar that has healed. The memory is there, the pain is gone, but the mark remains, a reminder of what happened, what I survived, what I became. I don't wish her ill. I don't wish her well. I simply don't think about her enough to wish anything at all. My life is full now. Sophie is beside me, her hand in mine, her laughter filling the spaces that used to be empty. My brother is close, his daughter calling me Uncle Daniel, his house a second home. My friends have returned, the ones who matter, the ones who saw me through the hardest months. My work is meaningful, my apartment is mine, my days are my own. I am not the person I was when I walked out that door. I am someone new, someone whole, someone who knows what he deserves. And what I deserve is not an ultimatum. It is not a choice between accepting what hurts me or losing what I love. It is not the slow erosion of self that comes from loving someone who can't see you. What I deserve is a love that meets me where I am. A partnership that asks for my whole self, not just the parts that are convenient. A life that I choose, not one that I accept. I have that now, and it is more than enough.